why some people shame the victims who speak about their parents' abuse in childhood. Why do these people shame them? They will say, never blame the parents. Parents are like God. Get over the trauma. The trauma happened many years ago. Just move on. Why do they say such things? What are the psychological reasons behind what they say? And what type of negative karmic effect these people will face in their adulthood? And what are the negative karmic effects and consequences that we have to face if we refuse to heal our childhood trauma or refuse to acknowledge that our parents were abusers? What will happen in our adulthood? What type of karma we will face? If you are interested with this topic, stay tuned till the end of the video. Hi spiritual warriors, I am Radhika Lakshmanan. I am a karma transformational guide who helps people to break their negative karmic patterns and heal their emotional wounds using unique hypnosis method. Now let's start. Now, why do some people shame victims or people who speak about their childhood trauma? Okay, the trauma that they have faced with their parents. They usually will say, never blame your parents. Parents are like God. We must always feel grateful to parents. They think all parents are same. Okay. We must be grateful that our parents are still alive. They are our supporting pillars. Yada 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 yada, etc., etc., etc. Why do these people say such things? That's because these are the individuals who refuse to acknowledge their own trauma, who refuse to acknowledge their own unhealed emotional wounds and abuse that had happened to them in their childhood. Abuse is not necessarily only a physical abuse, but also an emotional abuse. Do you know that emotional neglect is also a type of trauma? Yes, it is. We'll discuss about it shortly. So, these people who shame the victims who speak about their childhood trauma and glorify parents, glorify abusive parents, not good parents, abusive or toxic parents or narcissistic parents. These are the people who have been brainwashed and conditioned in their childhood that their reaction to their parents' abuse was an overreaction. Their parents brainwashed them, or their family members brainwashed them or conditioned them to think that their reaction to the abuse is an overreaction, that they are overreacting. And they were conditioned, brainwashed by those people to feel grateful to their abusive parents. So whenever they even question their parents, they will be shut down by those parents, saying that you should not question us. You should be grateful to parents. You should be polite to parents. So these individuals have been brainwashed and conditioned to downplay their trauma. That their needs, their emotions are unworthy. They've been brainwashed to think that their needs, their emotions, their feelings are unworthy, are not needed, are insignificant. They were trained to tolerate abuse. They were conditioned and brainwashed to think that abuse is something normal. Do you know that in some culture and some society, the abuse is considered something normal? Abuse done by the parents? They will be like, that is normal. No, that's not normal. Now, some of you might think that I support gentle parenting. No, I don't support gentle parenting either. Okay, we'll speak about it some other time. So, these particular individuals have been conditioned in their childhood that expressing emotions is a sign of weakness. They have been brainwashed and conditioned to think emotions are a sign of weakness. So when they see another person coming forward to express their emotions, they immediately shut them down, immediately shame them, immediately downplay their trauma. When we speak about our trauma to them done by our parents, our strength reminds them of their weakness. or their denial, their resistance to face their own trauma. They're delusional related to their parents. They refuse to face it because it brings them so much of pain. They are not able to cope up with the pain. Hence, they refuse to face it. So when you share about your trauma with them, it triggers them. It reminds them of their own past trauma. And it makes them feel uncomfortable. Especially if they grew up with narcissistic parents or narcissistic family members. Many narcissistic parents or emotionally abusive parents will make their children to feel like a burden. They make their children's whole existence feel like a burden. And force them to feel grateful to them only for the basic parental duties that they have done for them. They want their children to be grateful to them for the basic parental duties that they have done to them. That's their basic duty, parents' duty. They will make their children to feel like a burden only for basic parental duties. Bathing them, taking care of them, feeding them milk. They make their children feel that they owe them for doing those basic duties and make them feel like a burden. They'll constantly remind their children that they are a burden to them, that they owe them. So these people were trained and conditioned to think that they owe their abusive parents. So these people will outrightly deny that their parents had parenting problems. Some of them are totally delusional. They will say, I had a perfect parent, my parents are great, but in reality, they would have faced lots of trauma, especially emotional abuse. They might not have faced physical abuse, but they might have faced emotional abuse. So many of these people usually have lower emotional intelligence, and some of them are toxic. I'm speaking about people who shame you for speaking about your trauma. People who usually shame you for speaking about your parents' abuse or trauma, who tells you never blame parents, move on. These people usually have lower emotional intelligence. Lower emotional intelligence. They are very emotionally immature, and some of them are very toxic. Some narcissistic people had narcissistic parents. Okay, some narcissistic parents will have narcissistic children. Some of them, not all. Meanwhile, some others could be empaths. Okay, so right now, what do we need to know? So what will happen to these people and anyone who refuse to heal their childhood trauma, who refuse to even acknowledge that their parents have abused them? What will happen to these people? What type of negative karma that they will face? These people, now you have to understand one more thing. When somebody tells you to move on, to forgive your parents, it's okay to forgive, okay? However, when somebody tells you to move on from that trauma, to not blame your parents, they don't know that these narcissistic parents, many narcissistic parents or emotionally abusive parents, will continuously behave abusively towards their children in adulthood as well. This parents' abuse will not stop only because you have reached adulthood. This particular abusive parents or narcissistic parents' abuse will continue in your adulthood, but through different forms, through different ways. They might not emotionally abuse you in the same way that they used to abuse you in your childhood. However, they will abuse you in different ways. When I say emotional abuse, there are many types of emotional abuse. They can be very extremely manipulative parents, gaslighting parents, who are very they're very dismissive of your feelings and emotions. Some of them are very controlling, very dominating. Meanwhile, some other parents, they might pretend to be very kind and nice, but they're very mean and very manipulative. These are the type of parents who separate their sons from their daughter-in-laws, who separate their daughters from their son-in-laws, who control their adult children's major decisions in their life and destroy their self-worth and destroy their life. That's the reason it's extremely important to set boundaries with your abusers. Even if they are your parents, you have to set boundaries. What happens if you refuse to acknowledge your trauma or heal your trauma, or if you refuse to set boundaries with such abusive parents? What will happen? Do you know that most people, most adults who didn't heal their emotional wounds, who didn't set boundaries with their abusers or their abusive parents, they face many mental health issues, physical health issues, like illness that is caused by stress, physical illness is caused by stress, like there's many heart disease, diabetes, many more, cardiovascular illness, many more. That can be triggered by stress. Autoimmune diseases, some research has proven that certain disease were triggered by stress. These particular adults who never heal their emotional wounds and trauma will have high stress, very high stress, will be highly stressful, and that stress will lead to many physical illness, mental health issues like anxiety, depression. Many of them will try to numb their emotional pain and turn into addictions. Drug addiction, alcohol addictions, shopaholics, shopping addictions, social media addictions, sex addictions, addiction to certain medications. Many people will not be able to form healthy relationship. They will have this bad relationship karma, constant breakup, constant divorce. Or even if they don't face breakup or divorce, they will have a very unhappy relationship or unhappy married life, and they will stay in that marriage by tolerating that abuse. Why? Because they have been conditioned in their childhood to tolerate abuse. That abuse is normal, so they end up being a very miserable, unhappy people. Even if they are not miserable, they feel empty inside them, and they constantly try to distract themselves from facing their own emotional wounds. Many of them will have low self-esteem. They constantly carry lots of guilt, shame. They might have extreme people-pleasing tendencies. Many of them will get engaged in unrequited romantic relationships, abusive relationship. They will get into these negative karmic patterns related to relationship issues. They will tolerate abusive partners and say that is normal. Oh, my partner is not that toxic. He's actually a very kind person. Do you understand? You will have to face dire consequences. Now, I do agree that we must take accountability to heal our trauma rather than blaming the abuser forever. I do agree with that, okay? Because blaming the abuser forever is not going to bring you any benefit. However, you can only take the accountability to heal yourself only after you have acknowledged that you were a victim in your childhood, that you were a victim and the abuser is an abuser. You have to understand one thing: you cannot heal something that you refuse to acknowledge. If you refuse to face the fact that your parents were abusive towards you, how are you going to heal them? How are you going to heal the core issues? How are you going to heal the root cause of your problem? You cannot heal something that you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot heal something that you don't feel. So first, you have to acknowledge that you were a victim, initial stage, that the other person was an abuser. People who have went through childhood trauma, usually have difficulty to love themselves, to care for themselves, to have confidence. So the only thing that you have to teach victims is to love themselves, to give them the confidence and clarity to trust themselves. They will have lots of trust issues, not just related to others, but related to themselves. They will have difficulties to trust their decisions because they would have had a narcissistic parents who would have constantly made them doubt themselves and their decisions and shame them and nitpick on every single thing they did. I mentioned earlier, do you know that emotional neglect is also a type of trauma? People who have been emotionally neglected by their parents in their childhood face the similar emotional neglect in their adulthood. They might get drawn to similar life partners who neglect them emotionally, who do not respect their emotions and needs. My mentor used to say that parents are different from providers. Providers are who? Providers are those who provide you food, shelter, education. These are providers. Parents are those who not only who are not only your providers, but also who takes care of you emotionally, who gives importance to your emotions, your emotional needs, who are there for you to support you, not just physically, but also emotionally. Emotional nurturing, care is also part of parents' duty. I know many clients who approached me had many mental health issues. Some of them had physical illness. Some others had relationship issues. Some others have issues related to their career. They have negative karmic effects related to their career, constantly jumping from one job to another, unable to succeed in career. They're stuck in this negative karmic patterns. It's not just one incident. It will continuously happen like a cycle. Negative karmic effects. If you don't heal your trauma becomes part of your negative karma, your negative karmic patterns, and you'll get stuck in this loop, this negative loop. So stop shaming people who come forward to share their childhood trauma, who share their parents' abuse. You cannot heal something when you are not even allowed to speak about your abuse. When we speak about our parents' abuse, it's considered as betrayal by the family members. That's not true. That's not betrayal. We must learn to support each other. Only then you will be able to break your ancestral generational karmic pattern. If one of your siblings does the inner work to break this karmic pattern, it will give benefits to your whole generations. So please stop shaming people who come forward to share their childhood trauma, who speak about their parents' abuse. Never tell them, no, blame parents. Your parents might be good, okay? Your parents might be great people. But it's not applicable, it's not necessarily applicable for everyone, okay? Your parents might be good parents or great parents. It might not be the same for everyone. So stop shaming people for expressing their emotions. Yes, one need to take accountability to heal oneself, but only after they acknowledge the root cause of their trauma. Otherwise, how are they going to heal? They need to come forward and speak about it. So for those of you who have this childhood trauma, stop sharing your trauma with these gaslighters, with people who shame you for sharing your trauma, who ask you to move on from trauma. You can't simply move on from trauma. It takes time. Okay, you can't simply just forget it. It doesn't work like that related to trauma. So those of you who want to share about your trauma, stop sharing about it with people who shame you, with these gaslighters. Share it with only people whom you feel safe with, who respects your emotional pain. Okay? So when somebody shames you for expressing your trauma, please know that these people has their own emotional issues and traumas, or intimacy issues. They are not wise people. Most of them are emotionally immature, has lower level of emotional intelligence, and have been brainwashed and conditioned in their childhood to glorify all parents. We can be grateful to parents, we can respect parents, but at the same time acknowledge their abuse and mistreatment and question it. Because parents also have to take accountability for their misbehavior and mistreatment and their abuse. So if you like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Please share it with others so that they can heal their childhood wounds. Let me know what you think about this issue. Thank you.